Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quake Magic gameplay. This time around we are playing as the High Elves against the forces of the Empire on the map Carrick Asgal. And we are going for something a little gimmicky, a little cheesy perhaps, a little mean. Running Allarielle the Radiant, and right now she's kind of broken. I'd argue that she's probably overpowered. She's one. She's really the only reason. I think the only thing that makes the High Elves a somewhat broken faction in some ways. Otherwise, High Elves I think are in a very good spot right now, balance-wise. And you might be wondering why. Her stats, she's got some decent melee stats, but very low. She's not really a combat lord with low weapon strength, no charge, no armor, no HP. Well, it comes down to her abilities and her AoE buffs, which are kind of ludicrous. Shieldstone of Isha, plus 12% physical resist, which on the Fireborn, for example, or Dragon Princes in general, who have 25% built-in physical resist, means they're up to 37% physical resist. It's ridiculous. It's just a monstrous buff to their survivability. Plus, she grants magic damage, which means if your opponent is trying to use regrowth or AoE buffs to physical resist or anything like that, she grants you something to bypass them, which lets you shred through ethereal units, stuff like that. Plus, it's immunity psychology, because why not? And on top of that, of course, she's got ridiculous healing. She's got the Star of Averlorn. She's got Earthblood. She's got Phos Protection. And then, of course, she's got Arcane Conduit, just so she can spam spells more often. And yeah, and then of course I did bring a few other spells. I brought Shield of Thorns because I think it has some cool synergy with non-AP Cav. And I did bring Arcane Forging because I figured it could be decent. Alongside her, we do have those Fireborn to make use of that ridiculous buff to physical resist. We also do have two nobles who also gain from that, and one of these nobles is equipped with the Sacred Incense, which grants a 12% missile resist, which means the Fireborn have roughly 50% resistance to most missiles. Which is pretty ridiculous. It's pretty bonkers. Front line, just spears with signs of Mathlon, anchoring things in the middle. Not really anything fancy. These guys aren't here to win. They're just there to hold and provide me with an anvil. 2 units of archers to suppress enemy shooting. I don't really think you need anything fancy. And then up in the sky, we do have a Frostart Phoenix, looking all fancy for his debuffs, for his harass, for the terror, for the AP. Just a great unit in general. And he's got a lot of HP. It's pretty tanky. Out on the flank, a second unit of Dragon Princes who are immediately going to be skedaddling off to the left because they don't want to be taking shots from the steam tank that my opponent brought over here. So my opponent going with some pretty crazy unbreakable play here. The Tattersouls as well as the Sigmar's Sons as well as the steam tank who is going to be popping shots off at my poor Dragon Princes over there. And actually he's going to cap one of them even as they try to spin out. You can see there one of them just gets sent flying. Look at that poor guy. Look at that poor elf. Just flattened. And the prime of his youth, all 4,000 years old. 3 units of crossbowmen are making up a bit of a firing line here, and they are supported by Karl Franz, who's got all of his buffs as far as I can tell. Amber Wizard coming in with Flock of Doom as well as Transformation of Kadon to get those Manticore summons. Interesting take, something I wouldn't personally recommend, but you never know. It can be useful. It can do some damage. A Great Cannon, and then a whole bunch of spears providing some backline support. So interestingly enough, no demigriffs, no cavalry play. That's something you usually see against High Elves, but no cav play here. So my opponent, because I'm being very cautious with my cavalry, swinging them around the flanks, my opponent is actually going to end up pounding away at my archers, which honestly just doesn't matter. They're cheap. These guys are like 500 gold apiece. Not even. They're 475. They're the cheapest unit on the High Elf roster, so I don't really care. It doesn't really bother me too much. And we're basically just closing the gap. My opponent is not really pivoting his guns around, not in time at any rate, for Allarielle and the gang to start sweeping in. And you can see over here the Frostar Phoenix is actually going to shut down the steam tank. You can see it just flying around there, a steam shot there. It does nothing basically, and it's engaged. And the steam tank, of course, is a terrible melee combatant. It's a terrible unit in general. You're basically never going to hear me say otherwise. No melee defense worth speaking about. Armor that just gets bypassed by AP, and terrible weapon strength. Just don't even get me started. I hate the steam tank. I love it from a lore perspective. I hate it from this game's perspective. I want it to get a buff. Either way, my opponent does dive in with Karl, who pops all of his buffs to get in there and knock some sense into this evil bird. But Mr. Frostar Phoenix is going to keep pounding on the steam tank just to keep it bogged down, and then just waddles away from Karl, ignoring him as the Dragon Princes charge in. And they're going to get a nice little surround here on Karl. I actually think my opponent fired a cannonball there, or maybe it was the artillery battery over up on the hill. But at this point, Carl's going to get surrounded. The steam tank is just pounding away, and we do get a fast protection on the Dragon Princes, which is going to make them much more capable in combat. Anytime here in the pits, you can see we actually get the Froststar Phoenix up on the cannon crew, which means it's going to be taken offline. So you can see these poor Empire soldiers not able to do very much. And the thing is, the Froststar Phoenix has 48 melee defense. So against most of these units, with their and it's got an AoE melee attack debuff of -9. So against all of these troops, they're down to like 11. Even with their bonus versus large, these guys are almost never hitting the Froststar Phoenix. They're just so tanky. And now in the pits, the Fireborn, the Nobles, we've caught Karl Franz. We hit him with an Arcane Forging. My opponent doesn't have any sources of healing, and Karl's just getting demolished here. And the thing is, Allarielle, though, she did get some attacks into Allarielle, did quite a bit of damage to her, but especially with Immunity Psychology, we don't have to worry about any routes. The Fireborn are basically invulnerable to the Spearmen, but the Flock of Doom isn't going to do very much. And poor Karl does go down here. You can see the majestic Deathclaw there just lying shattered. And you know, it's a bit of at this point, it's just a bit of a disaster. My archers are suppressing my opponent's crossbows. The Dragon Princes that shut down the steam tank are over here, and as my opponent is forced to flee, they're going to be able to start picking off his routing troops. And in the meantime, we're kind of just ignoring spears. The Fireborn have only lost 3 models in this whole shenanigan, this whole fight. My opponent does throw his Manticore in, trying to snipe out Allarielle, but we just counteract with a Star of Avalon. We're just like, yeah, you know, here, we'll just sit here and get some heals, and my opponent can't do anything really, so sit tight. These Spearmen are not going to be able to cut the mustard. They've got terrible melee attack against any, and like the Fireborn, the thing is, you look at it, Fireborn have 53 melee defense. With a baseline chance state of 35, these guys would the Spearmen with their normal melee attack of I think 20 plus bonus first large of, is it 15 or 14? 15. So they've got a 35 melee attack. So normally it's 70 against 53. It's all their chances are already miserable of hitting. They're down to like 17. With that debuff, they literally have the minimum chance to hit of 10%. It is just piteous. It's pitiful. You can see over here the same with the Froststar Phoenix. It's basically impossible to hit. Only any of the Nobles have. Never mind. I lied. The Nobles have 60 melee defense. So basically, my opponent can't do anything here. We're just running away with Allarielle, letting the second Feral Manticore get dumpstered by the Fireborn. It's unbreakable, but it's just going to disintegrate. It rampages once it loses 25. This is honestly one of the worst designed units in the game, the Feral Manticore, and especially the Feral Manticore summon, because as it degenerates, it drops into that rampage zone and starts to rampage, so it's even worse. It's just a terrible spell. I don't want another one of these graceful implementations, whatever. I'm about to get ranty here, but it's definitely a pretty pitiful unit. Over here, the Dragon Prince is sweeping around, having wiped out one unit of crossbows, or on to the next one. Allarielle, though, is very badly beaten up, and I don't want to lose this game just yet. So we're pulling Allarielle away, just running for dear life, which is going to debuff all of these guys. It is going to take away that 12% physical resist. You can see these Fireborn taking another 3 losses. So a tragedy, an absolute tragedy taking place. But it doesn't really matter. The Froststar Phoenix here is going to be able to slide out with the steam tank, which is going down. Slowly but surely. Surprisingly, you know, the Froststar Phoenix can miss, apparently. It does show, you know, in the 35 melee attack, that baseline chance to miss is there. The Froststar Phoenix doesn't hit. There we go. Takes a nibble out of the steam tank. Anytime over here, we are going to be able to goon out the poor Amber Wizard, so he's going to be forced off. And my opponent's army is at this point basically just reduced to this ball of great swords, Sigmar's Sons, Tattersouls, and the cannon, and we're using our Dragon Princes here, just running amok, running down infantry units, ping-ponging between them. As my opponent's Spearmen rally here, we're actually going to charge straight into the Spearmen, which might seem a little stupid, but honestly, Dragon Princes with a very solid melee stats and a huge charge bonus of 80, especially against unbraced spears. We're just going to dumpster these guys without a care in the world, and just look at these poor Empire spears getting sent flying. I was hoping that would be a little more epic. It was a little anticlimactic. Oh my god, look at that guy though. Just get stabbed in the back. It's pretty vicious elves there. But this one, my opponent's army is simply going to break 2 army losses. And you can see, of course, with all these unbreakable units, you can actually see the Sigmar Sons there are going to get into the archers because I wasn't paying attention. But it just doesn't matter. You can see over here the Tattersouls actually beating down the Phoenix a good amount, surprisingly. I'm not entirely sure how this fight has gone so badly for the Phoenix, but it doesn't really matter at this point. We just get a pincer. We're going to beat the snot out of the steam tank. You can see all those elves. All those very angry elves just beating the snot out of this guy. And the steam tank are terrible melee defense, just doesn't stand a chance here. So we can watch the last stand of the Empire here. Another Star of Avalon going down just to make the victory a little more decisive. The steam tank is finally going to explode. And that just leaves the Sigmar Sons, who are actually apparently going to take another minute to wipe out, which I kind of forgot about. You can see there, we are going to run them over. Just a mob of cavalry and shooting and Froster Phoenix. And these guys are up to 100 kills actually, which, you know, they cleaved through some Elven Spears, and they did some okay work while they were alive, but now it's just clean up in Mile 9. The poor Sigmar Sons, the poor Sigmarites are slaughtered to the last. So I think this kind of demonstrates some of the ridiculousness of Allarielle. Now my opponent here didn't necessarily have the best counter composition. I don't think he was considering this build. A lot of people who go into this matchup do not consider or not think about this build really. But it is a bit gimmicky, but it is incredibly potent. You can see there, 210 kills on the Fireborn. Allarielle and the Nobles essentially did whatever the heck they felt like. They just buffed the Fireborn a bunch. And my opponent couldn't do anything about it. Yeah, he just couldn't. He had no units to shut him down. He tried to snipe me out with the Manticore. He was trying to snipe me out with Carl, but what ended up happening is that his troops just got baited down into terrible fights where the Nobles and the Fireborn were able to dice them up. A similar situation happens if you're dealing with, say, Demigryph Knights or units like that. It's kind of tough. The Froststar Phoenix just kind of rubbed salt in the wound and made it worse. For my opponent's build, it was a little gimmicky because he did go for that steam tank, which I don't think is a great idea, but it's honestly something Empire doesn't have too many counters to. You can bring a... Apologies there. You can bring a Lore of Shadows caster, get that Occam's Mindraiser. Flaming Sword of Ruin, of course, is a terrible idea because Fireborn Dragon Princes in general have monstrous fire resist. So yeah, you're basically stuck. You need to bring cannons, maybe... either artillery or Demigryph Knights with some serious buffing to win the day. Otherwise, you're really kind of screwed. It's a pretty tough match, I think, for Empire right now, if your opponent goes with this sort of build. Or try to snipe Allarielle somehow. Though doing that is tough. With 90 speed, you're not really able to catch her, or she brings an eagle, and you also can't catch her. Your black powder artillery maybe could do it. If you can get her close enough, you could snipe her down. Because she herself isn't the most survivable hero. It's mostly just that she makes everyone else survivable. But it's definitely tough. Regardless, good game to my opponent, Bronson here. Had a lot of fun. You can see the poor Spear just got wiped out the man, which I think is what made this a Pyrrhic victory. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining and fun. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe below if you have not already. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, don't hesitate to post them down below, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.